Thank you for joining us for another episode on dental malpractice. I'm Charles Bust, and I'm a personal injury and wrongful death attorney in Orlando, Florida. And today we're going to be talking about osteomyelitis of the jaw, specifically in the realm of dental malpractice cases. So cases involving osteomyelitis of the jaw are some of the most intense dental malpractice cases out there. Oftentimes the result of osteomyelitis is like something from a horror movie. The patient will have to go in and have parts of their jaw removed. They end up with a gap in their jaw a lot of the time. And the only way to fix that problem is multiple surgeries, reconstructive surgery. They go in and put in a titanium plate, and then the patient will need, typically some sort of bone from another part of the body. In my experience, that's been from the hip. And so it's an absolute nightmare, as you can imagine, if you end up with an infection in your jawbone. Let's talk a little bit about what osteomyelitis is before we get into other details. So osteomyelitis of the jaw is an infection of the jawbone that can develop after a dental procedure. The word osteomyelitis literally means infection of the bone marrow. So typically our osteomyelitis cases will involve infection of the lower jaw. And it's a really, really tough situation when the patient gets osteomyelitis because it's so hard to stop once it gets started. If you can imagine, if you've ever lit a fire in a fireplace, if you've ever tried to get a block of wood started, to get it to catch on fire without an accelerant like lighter fluid or newspaper to put under it, it takes forever to get that block of wood started. But once it's on fire, it's really hard to put it out. Osteomyelitis is kind of the same way. It's difficult to get an infection started in a person's bone. Bone is very, very resistant to infection. But once it gets started, you'll need some really serious measures to kill that infection. And typically, our clients will have been on an IV antibiotic or a PICC line for 6 or 8 weeks just to kill that infection. So what makes a good or winnable osteomyelitis case? Whether a dentist is liable for dental malpractice is always going to boil back down to whether the dentist breached the standard of care. And we've talked about that in other videos. In an osteomyelitis case, we're typically looking for some sort of apathy or failure to timely diagnose the condition. Time is valuable in osteomyelitis cases. In the osteomyelitis cases that bring the most value, right, where the dentist gets hammered the hardest for that mistake, there's some sort of clear and obvious issue that the dentist should have seen, and then the dentist fails to notice in subsequent visits, right? In the best types of osteomyelitis cases, there's a clear issue that caused the infection. There's a genesis of that infection that the doctor should have noticed. A lot of times we'll see this in a wisdom tooth extraction where the dentist broke the patient's jaw and then failed to notice it. And then when the patient starts having swelling and pain and comes back to the doctor doesn't take the infection very seriously, right? Doesn't do a biopsy, doesn't find out what is causing this problem. And they'll just do like a drainage or a debridement. And over time, this infection just keeps growing and keeps growing. And that's where the danger is for the patient, because the longer the infection goes untreated or not properly treated, the more likely that patient's going to have a huge section of his or her jaw removed and then have that titanium plate. And this is really dangerous too, because that's where the inferior alveolar nerve is. So when you start talking about removing chunks of a person's jaw, you're looking at a high likelihood of some sort of permanent nerve damage, which is just an absolute nightmare. So how do you know if you have osteomyelitis? What are the symptoms? If you have osteomyelitis, you'll obviously feel pain and swelling, but you may also experience things like fever or fatigue and headaches. You may experience heat in your face around the area of the jaw that's infected. You may also notice a lump in your jaw, like a marble or even a golf ball. Or you may have some sort of stiffness in your jaw because of all the swelling and the pain, and this can cause difficulty eating or speaking. And you may also experience things like drainage of the infection or chills. If you have any symptoms like these, and if you've undergone a dental surgical procedure or an extraction, you may have osteomyelitis. Most of the time, when we get an osteomyelitis case, it's the result of a wisdom tooth extraction gone bad. So if you've had a wisdom tooth extracted and you're starting to feel all of these kind of problems and nobody's noticing it, the dentist doesn't know what's going on, or you feel that the dentist doesn't know what's going on, it's worth a second opinion to make sure that you don't have osteomyelitis that is not treated, that is getting out of hand, because that's how people end up with really, really serious problems. So if you think you have osteomyelitis, if you feel like something's wrong, you got a sneaking suspicion your dentist is messing up, we're happy to give you a free consultation and talk to you about what's going on. Even if we can't take your case, maybe we can give you some guidance or lead you to the right attorney. My law partner and I opened this firm to help people, and we're happy to help you however we can. We're here if you need us.